Okay, so here we have my presentation on the Morro Bay Kangaroo Rat, or Dipodamus hirmani moroensis. There he is. His status is endangered with a priority level of 6C, which indicates that this animal is a subspecies which has a high level of threat and a low level of recovery. The federal government recognized this animal as endangered in 1970, and the state of California recognized it as endangered in 1971. This animal is endemic to California, and here we see the western United States. And if we zoom in a little closer, we can see the southern half of California with San Jose up at the top and Los Angeles down at the bottom. We zoom in a little closer, we're getting closer to this animal's habitat. We can see San Luis Obispo, Morro Bay, and here, this is where this animal lives. It is endemic to this very small portion of California, the Los Osos and Baywood Los Osos region, with Morro Bay up in the north, the Pacific Ocean at the west, and mountains in San Luis Obispo to the east. Now, if we look at a map of its historical range from the 1999 revised recovery plan for this animal, it looks a little familiar. Previously, in the last slide, we saw that area with a lot of urban development and very little land space. Well, historically, there used to be land there, and that's where he used to live. And so obviously, this animal was displaced and its habitat was destroyed due to human urban development. Historically, though, its habitat was quite nice. He lived on these stabilized sand dunes, which means that they've been there for a long time. Wind and weather have compacted the sand to make the sand dunes strong and sturdy, and with a fine level of substrate on the top of sand and soil. The vegetation you see is early stage coastal scrub, and what makes it early stage is that it has not matured, and it was kept at an early stage by Native Americans, which would periodically burn the area, which would kill overgrowth and promote new growth of this plant and seeds, which the animal uses as food, and it would also leave nice open spaces for this animal to hop around, to forage, and to burrow. Open ground for burrow entrances in the fine soil and sand, like I said. They prefer vegetation that produces seeds, and there aren't that many species. They prefer only 3 to 4 species of plants that produce seeds, and they also don't necessarily need to drink water from a source. Scientists believe that they get their moisture from these seeds and plants, or perhaps from dew that's on the plants. Historically, this area that they occupied was 10 square kilometers, which is the same as 1,000 hectares, or 3.86 square miles, or 2,471 acres. Here is what their habitat looks like, with that burning of overgrowth, beautiful green vegetation, open space for hopping and burrowing, and here's what it looks like in the absence of fire. Dead, overgrown plants, not that much green vegetation, and definitely no space for hopping and burrowing. Again, from that 1999 revised recovery plan for this animal, they provide us with some maps of their home range declining. So in 1957, the white area indicates the start of urban development, but still quite a bit of space for this animal to live. And then in 1971, we can see that it has declined quite a bit. In 1977, those 3 areas have gotten even smaller. This also indicates that the population was displaced and separated from each other into possibly 3 populations. And then in 1986, we see this tiny little area. It's about 4.8 square miles of land, that this animal occupies. And that's in 1986, which is the last time this animal was actually seen in the wild. Scientists and the government are speculating that perhaps this animal is extinct, but experts on this animal have discovered possible signs that they still exist and are still searching for this animal, although some of the places that they believe it exists are on private property where the owners will not let the government go in and investigate. Physical characteristics of this animal. There he is. He's very small. He's the smallest of the 9 subspecies. So species Dipodamus hirmani, or Heermann's kangaroo rat, there are 9 subspecies of it, and he weighs about 2.3 ounces, which is the same as about 2 slices of bread. He has large hind feet for hopping, hence the name kangaroo rat. He has a long tail, which is mainly used for balance while he's hopping around. He has small front legs, which are used for foraging in the sand and putting his little seeds into his mouth. He has a large head with large eyes because he is nocturnal. He has the darkest fur of all the subspecies, and he has fur-lined cheek pouches. This is a little bit different than a chipmunk or a squirrel that might have big, flexible cheeks where they stuff their food in their mouth and then it goes into their cheeks. This animal has separate pouches in its cheeks, so the food actually doesn't go into its mouth to get stored. It just goes directly into these pouches on the side of its mouth. Historically, this animal has a low genetic diversity. In the 1980s, when they compared DNA samples of this animal to samples from the early 1900s, they were virtually unchanged. And so they've determined that the low genetic diversity of this animal is not necessarily due to its population decline, but simply because it's always been that way. I have a couple videos for us to watch to look at his physical characteristics. Here's a video in a lab where they're recording a kangaroo rat jumping, and so we can see how he's using his hind legs to hop and his tail to balance his body. That was a desert kangaroo rat. Videos for Morro Bay kangaroo rats are very difficult to find because, like I said, the last time this species was seen in the wild was in 1986. Here's another similar video of a kangaroo rat hopping. Slow motion, but it's an X-ray. So we can see how exactly those bones in the hind legs move while it's hopping. This animal hops very, very fast and pretty far for such a little animal. Some of its behavior. Here's an interesting picture. When I first saw it, I was like, whoa, what's going on here? Are those his teeth? This is strange looking. But those are those fur-lined cheek pouches. We can see up at the top is his nose. We go down a little bit, we can see those 2 incisors and his mouth and his little chin, and on either side of his mouth and chin are those fur-lined cheek pouches, and inside them are seeds. This is a giant kangaroo rat, but the giant kangaroo rat and the Morro Bay kangaroo rat share the same physical characteristic. The Morro Bay kangaroo rat is nocturnal, so it only comes out of its burrow at night to forage for food. It forages for this food in the substrate and directly on foliage. Sometimes the Morro Bay kangaroo rat will stand on its hind legs to reach up to low branches for seeds, but it rarely climbs any plants to find seeds. Sometimes it will also grab the branches with its little front legs and shake them to release some of those seeds. This animal will eat while it forages, in addition to storing the seeds in its cheek pouches. And it hides the food that it has foraged in burrows. Their burrows will be 12 to 30 inches under the surface, and they will have various compartments Some compartments are for sleeping, some compartments are for rearing their young, for mating, and others are for storing food. If the burrow is a little too far away for this kangaroo rat to go back and store its food while it's foraging, it might go about halfway back and dig a little pit in the ground and dispose of its seeds into the pit until it's done foraging, where it'll go back to its burrow and collect up all those seeds and put them away. Mostly this animal is solitary, so it lives by itself, but they will have these sparring events during mating or while protecting their territory, where they will run directly at each other very quickly, and at the last minute they'll jump aside so they don't hit each other, and then one of them will chase the other one off. Again, they're solitary, so burrows are only shared for mating purposes and for rearing their young. Females will have anywhere from 1 to 3 litters a year, and each litter will have 2 to 3 pups, and they become sexually mature around 4 months of age and have about a 3-year lifespan. They communicate by scent marking, which means that they may use their urine or rub their genitalia on nearby vegetation to mark their territory, and by foot drumming, which is where they tap the ground with their large back feet and create vibration as well as sound. Historically, their home ranges were about 1/5 of an acre, and they did not overlap with each other. But as their habitat declined and there was less space for them, scientists found that their home ranges began to overlap and were much smaller. Here are a few videos for us to watch of some of their behavior. This is some of that foot drumming I was talking about. This kangaroo rat has come back from foraging in the night to its burrow, and it's discovering that there's somebody inside its burrow that is not welcome. So he starts kicking dirt in there and starts thumping his back feet on the ground. The scientists that took this video set up a microphone on the ground so you can hear that foot drumming. He can smell that somebody's inside his burrow, so he's going to make a bunch of noise and say, "Hey, there's a big, large animal out here. You better be scared. You better get out of this burrow, or it's going to get you." And as we can see at the burrow entrance, here comes the animal, and it happens to be a snake, which is one of the predators of the kangaroo rat. This snake could probably easily capture and eat this kangaroo rat, but since he's making so much noise and kicking dirt in there, the snake is pretty confused and probably pretty frightened. And so he's just going to want to come out and see if it's safe and get out of there. Another video we have to watch. This is another kangaroo rat. Both of these videos are desert kangaroo rats. Again, it's very difficult to find videos of Morro Bay kangaroo rats because they were last seen in the wild in 1986, but they share a lot of the same behaviors as other species of kangaroo rats. So this little kangaroo rat is foraging. He's hopping around, he's digging through the substrate, and he's getting some of those grass seeds. And it looks like he is eating them, but what he's actually doing is putting the seeds in those fur-lined pouches. So as we watch the video, we can see that his cheeks are actually getting bigger and bigger and bigger because he's stuffing them full of seeds. There they are, super puffy cheeks. He takes the seeds off of the grass and then uses his hands to stuff them in his cheeks. And so later he will go back to his burrow and deposit them into his seed cache. Another video I'd like us to watch is some of that sparring behavior I was talking about. They're chasing each other away, saying, "This is my territory, this is my space." Here he comes. They jump out of the way and then chase each other away. Pretty funny stuff. So I'd like to talk about their taxonomy briefly. It's pretty extensive, but we know that they're in the kingdom Animalia. We know that they're bilateral. We know that they're in the phylum Chordata. So they have a notochord and a postanal tail. They also have a skull, a backbone, a jaw, and they are mammals. They give birth to live young. They have fur, and they are in the order Rodentia. And rodents are characterized by the pair of ever-growing incisors on the top and bottom jaw. They are in the family Heteromyidae, which are kangaroo rats and pocket mice, and the subfamily Dipomyinae, which are kangaroo mice and kangaroo rats. They're in the genus Dipodamus, species Dipodamus hermanni, and subspecies Dipodamus hermanni moroensis. So there's two primary causes of their decline. The first is loss of habitat due to urbanization. So we talked about how this animal was declared endangered by the federal government and the California state government in 1970 and in 1971. And here we have pictures from that exact time period of the area. This is a power plant being built. We have houses being built. There's a generator for the power plant being trucked through town. Roads, highways. A lot of people coming in for the beautiful scenery, the bay, the seclusion. It's a very nice area. However, it's a very small area for this animal to live in, and it's the only place it has to live. And these people have come in and totally destroyed its habitat. The second cause for decline is absence of fire and change in vegetation. Here we have some invasive species that are present in this area. They will come in and take over the coastal sage scrub and leave very little space for the animal to hop around and burrow. And they also don't really provide much food for the animal. And so without fire to kill these species off, they just come in and invade. And here is that overgrown, mature coastal scrub. In accordance with the Endangered Species Act, the government performs 5-year reviews on all the animals that are listed as endangered, and they use a 5-factor analysis to determine if there should be any change to the animal's status. For example, if an animal is endangered but their numbers are increasing and their situation is improving, they might change their status from endangered to threatened. Or in other cases, they might find that the situation for the animal has worsened, and there are no longer any individuals, in which case they would declare them as extinct. So the 5 factors that they use are present or threatened destruction, modification, or curtailment of habitat or range. This is probably the #1 threat for the Morro Bay Kangaroo Rat. Overutilization for commercial, recreational, scientific, or educational purposes. That means the animal has been taken out of the wild and sold as pets, or put into zoos, or used for scientific research, and this is not seen as a threat for this particular animal. 3 is disease or predation. While scientists have acknowledged that there has been predation due to domesticated animals such as dogs and cats with the arrival of humans and urbanization in the area, it's not a huge threat does not determine this animal's rate of decline. Number 4 is inadequacy of existing regulatory mechanisms. This is not seen as an issue because there are in fact many regulations set in place for this animal and their habitat on parcels of land owned by the government that are potential habitats for this animal. Vehicles such as motorcycles or ATVs that people would ride on the sand dunes are not allowed, and it's not allowed to be used for urban development. Although the issue is that a lot of these regulations were put into place far too late for this animal. And then number 5 is other natural or man-made factors affecting continued existence. And one that was mentioned was, of course, climate change. So, what is the recovery goal as of that 2011 5-year review for this animal? Simply to locate any remaining colonies. That is the actual recovery goal on the document, is simply just to find this animal. Like I said, they think that some of them are on private pieces of property, that the government is not allowed to come in and search for them, but they haven't given up hope. This animal has not been declared extinct, and scientists are doing the best that they can to continue to search for it and to hopefully find habitable space for this animal. Here are my resources. Thank you for watching, and thank you for listening.